Welcome to the Art of Healing podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to helping you connect with your mind, body, and spirit. This is Charlize, physician and Reiki master, and thank you so much for joining me. I would like to remind you that although I'm a physician, the information you receive in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. You can find my full disclaimer at my website, www.healingartshealthandwellness.com. If you like what you hear on this podcast, sign up for my weekly newsletter. Check your show notes for more information and for the link to sign up. Thank you. Hello, podcast listeners. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. Can Reiki help for fatigue? In the last episode, we had discussed fatigue, the basics of fatigue, how you can approach it. So I wanted to dedicate an episode to using the healing modality of Reiki, which we frequently discuss at Healing Arts, Health and Wellness, how that can help with fatigue. So revisiting that previous episode, if you missed it, just a quick recap, we talked about fatigue as far as, did it just start as a chronic? And then we delved into some of the issues that could be happening in the body, particularly like with the hormones, according to the chakra, and of course the chakra system. And then of course we visited upon some of the approaches that you'll want to look out for once you seek care for it, because we can't really DIY this. We do need to get our basics done, but this podcast can help if you've done all the basics, you've gotten checked out, you've gotten your lab work, and maybe you don't have an obvious answer as to what's making you feel so tired. So as you may know, if you've caught any of the other episodes, I'm a Reiki practitioner. I'm also a Reiki receiver, but it's a healing modality that's definitely a regular part of my life. I perform sessions on myself daily, longer sessions when I can. And I always encourage people that are interested, even if you have even the least little bit of interest, that you definitely want to pursue Reiki, even learning it. It is actually a simple healing technique you can have learned in a relatively short period of time. And I'll post a link that if you're looking for resources, definitely you can check out my website. There's a self-guided course that you can start right away and be a Reiki 1 practitioner. And then there's, of course, so many online courses. But if you're even a little bit curious, I would definitely encourage you to pursue it. It is something that you can definitely help heal yourself. You heal others as well. But would Reiki help with just generalized fatigue, chronic fatigue? So when people are suffering from fatigue, they're tired. The odds are, and this is just even referencing what I've seen in my own practice, that they have sought care from one or two or more doctors. They've seen several specialists. They may have even sought therapy and pretty much everything they could think of. And then at the end of it, they may not have a very clear answer. And if that's where you are, then it really is advisable to start thinking about holistic modalities, because a lot of times in traditional medicine, we really can't answer anything beyond that because we weren't trained on it. It's just not in our paradigm. But would you want to consider receiving Reiki or learning it to treat yourself? So I would definitely say the resounding answer would be yes. It might be worth trying a healing modality like Reiki. Reiki can help alleviate particularly chronic fatigue in a number of ways. So one of the ways that it can help is that the relaxation that you experience during a session, whether it's if you're doing it on yourself or on others, sometimes just a focused period of relaxation, much like we would get in meditation, often helps to lift your energy. And this is often what I tell people that, sometimes the biggest risk with getting Reiki is that during that time, the only thing you may get is rest. You may fall asleep, but it won't bring any harm. And since the average session takes between 45 minutes up to an hour and a half, but normally sessions don't last that long, just the time of relaxation, and if it helps, maybe even repeatedly getting that over a series can help to improve the energy. Once you learn the healing art of Reiki, if you start to practice on yourself or if you're receiving it from a practitioner, the Reiki energy is channeled, and the way that we learn it and the way we're trained is that we're just trying to focus the best of intentions to heal whatever needs to be healed. Every once in a while, well, pretty often, you may get some insight. You may actually learn something that allows you to dig deeper. And this kind of information, however it comes, if it's channeled to you or your practitioner tells you, often can get to the root of why you're feeling so tired. Really hard for me to describe it in a whole lot of detail because that experience is very individual and it depends on the person and their session and how it's received. But a lot of times it's through a Reiki session that we can get down to what could be at the root. And what I have noticed is things like sometimes a sensation may come up during a treatment, or sometimes a memory may come up that when we reflect upon it, the memory actually ties into that feeling of not feeling so well. It can show up in a number of ways, but definitely getting some of that insight as to what could be causing it could be really powerful. You can use that information in combination with your medical workup. So maybe if you've done, gotten blood work and gotten everything that you need, and it may appear that, as you're going through the process that you're showing signs of depression, maybe combining any information that comes from your Reiki session can help support what to do next. If the depression would require medication or if the depression could be managed with meditation or getting more exercise. But it's definitely useful and powerful information that doesn't hurt to have at all. It's always good to ask if for any treatment modality, if there's any clinical evidence or any studies that support it. I had done a talk on Reiki in healthcare, which I will plan on sharing with my listeners or anyone that's on the website. And as a healing modality, Reiki hasn't been studied nearly as much as meditation, acupuncture, or some of the other integrative healing techniques. For a number of reasons, it's not as many practitioners, and it's somewhat difficult to formulate how to study Reiki in a way where the clinical evidence is going to be helpful or useful. But I did find that there were a few studies concerning Reiki and fatigue. One was called the Pilot Crossover Trial of Reiki versus Rest for Treating Cancer-Related Fatigue. Now I'll make sure to put that in the show notes with that citation. But what that study found was that using Reiki for those that were suffering from fatigue related to the treatments of cancer, like chemotherapy or radiation, they actually felt better and felt more rested than those that were given prescribed rest, which was like a nap, a specified nap at a certain time. So I think that's really interesting. So for individuals that are being treated for cancer or recovering from cancer, fatigue is a profound, life-altering symptom that makes everything much harder, that makes the things of spending time with family, connecting, just living, that no matter how the cancer treatment's gone, dealing with that fatigue. And it's one of those topics in medicine that we may not have an exact answer to. We can clear out the big things. If it's anemia, an infection, related to like bone loss, vitamin depletion, nerve damage from chemotherapy. But then after that, we kind of run out of options. And we don't always have the tools to address it in traditional medicine of what would happen with someone who's suffering from profound fatigue, particularly if they have been treated successfully for cancer. For many of my patients, that's often a point of frustration that they were diagnosed with cancer. They received their treatments and did great, and they've recovered from their surgeries, their radiation, or their chemotherapy. And then months and months later, they still don't feel like they used to feel. They still feel very tired. And so we can try to detect and look for things, and definitely getting down to the root cause with doing some detailed lab analysis and checking the hormone panels, checking the adrenal glands. It's always worthwhile because something may be detected. But then after all that, what are we dealing with? And I'll tell many of my patients that, the trauma of the diagnosis, the trauma of everything that went on, that may be what we're left with. And we may not have a way to physically, chemically heal it. So let's think about something holistic. And this is where either receiving Reiki, which, and I like to remind people, distance Reiki is a great option, especially if your immune system's weakened, if you don't have a practitioner near you, or you just don't have the energy to drive and get to them. A distance Reiki session's perfect. You just need to be able to set up a quiet space in your home where you can relax. You agree upon the time and place with your practitioner, and then you just let the Reiki happen. You just let the session happen, and it can be extremely helpful depending on how open you are. There was to healing fatigue. So, and then there was another study. Let's see, this is going to be immediate symptom relief in the first session of Reiki versus massage that was done in a hospital. And in this study, it was discovered that when compared to a similar modality, which was massage, Reiki could help to alleviate fatigue. And I like to point that out because massage, which are schools of massages, all kinds of, that is a whole healing modality in itself. You have to be skilled and trained to do it. And that could take years of learning a technique correctly. But really anyone can learn Reiki, and it could be delivered. I think in this study, it was delivered in a hospital setting, but it could be delivered in any setting, and again, distance. So if someone's in the hospital doing distance Reiki while they're there, perfect. You don't have to be there. They can receive the treatment on their way home, speed up the healing and recovery. But definitely interesting to know that there are a few studies that point us in the direction that Reiki can definitely deal with particularly chronic fatigue related to cancer. So if you're considering if you should receive Reiki or learn Reiki to help heal your fatigue, couple of ways you can do it. You can definitely establish with a practitioner. You can go into them or get distance. And I would recommend, if you are deciding on this modality, to be prepared to do it more than once. For a lot of my own clients, I've noticed that they would like to do one session and be done. We're dealing with subtle energy. Those are going to be energy blocks. And depending on how bad the energy blocks are, it might be a good idea to consider doing more than one, as it may take more healing than just one session to get to some improvement. This is one of the times where it's a really good idea to consider empowering yourself. So if you think about, skills you've learned in your life, may have learned, or probably have learned how to cook, how to iron, how to clean, how to, do the basics of like your home care. And, you have your self-care and your hygiene, you do your medications, you have all these self-care. But, does your self-care include cleaning up your energy? And if that's not something you thought of, your self-care could run the gamut of, do you have any kind of spiritual practice, or do you meditate, or, even beyond? And that's where it's kind of interesting, where you can learn Reiki. And even though I say the term learn, the process is therapeutic. It's healing from the moment you started, from the moment you learn the basics of the energy body, and you learn how you're going to calm your mind and how you will channel the energy yourself. The whole process really is something that helps to heal you. But it's something that once you learn it, you can be treating yourself every day. Now, some of the challenges of doing Reiki on yourself is having sort of that template or the mindset, or knowing that you're going to do this every day. So sometimes I'll advise people that if you don't feel quite ready for that, you can consider just daily meditation and testing the waters with doing short meditations like that are in my 21-day meditation journey, my ebook. in print book. But if you're already doing that and you feel ready for more, this is definitely a great time that you can start to step that up and start doing sessions, short sessions on yourself. You can do 9-minute sessions, or you can do even more where you do full on sessions every single day. But if you think about it, that is just a great bargain. That really your only barrier would just be finding the time and the space in your life, but that you could actually be doing that on your own. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. We'll be back next week where we'll cover, we'll actually do just a brief meditation together. That's based on one that's in my book, The 21-Day Meditation Journey. I wish you health and wellness. And until next week, thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Art of Healing podcast. Once again, this is Charlize. You can find out more about me at www.healingartshealthandwellness.com. Did you know I have a blog as well as online courses? Check your show notes to sign up for more information about healing arts, health, and wellness. Thank you. Please feel free to share this episode with your friends, family, and loved ones.